So as you can read from the slide, this workshop is communicating with a professor. That's going to be presented by me, Daniela. I work in the FYE STEM Center as a mentor here at OC.
And hi everyone, my name is Catherine and I'm a peer mentor at Channel Islands.
It's like the main form of communication that you might use with your professor. It's definitely the main form of communication that the First Year Experience program has been using. So if y'all have been checking your inboxes, you'll see that we send you a few emails. And that's usually, again, how we communicate, and it's just like sending you all messages that you need. And this is how you're going to be communicating with your professor all over the time.
So some reasons why you would send an email to your professor is because you're either going to be late to class, you're not going to show up, you have a question with an assignment or maybe a quiz that's coming up or an exam. And there's other reasons why you would email a professor, but those are some of the main ones. So expectations. What you would expect when you send an email is you have to give your professor some time to respond, because they also have other classes to teach as well other students to see, so they might not respond right away. And if they respond back to you but you still don't understand what they mean in the email, don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
Elements of an email. So what you'll see like at the top of the worksheet that we just gave you, or at least at the top of the email box, one of the first lines is subject line. We put this at the front just because the subject line is very important. It's pretty much the first thing that your professor or instructor will see when you email them. So it's important that whatever you put into that line, and you definitely should put something on the subject line, is relevant to the email and will give them sort of an idea of what it is they're going to be looking at.
And it's really important to actually add something to the subject line, because some professors, if they don't see that there's a subject line, they might not even look at it. So does anyone know the difference between CC and BCC?
I see a lot of people shaking their heads. So CC stands for carbon copy, and BCC stands for blind carbon copy. What that means is that in the CC line, you could add multiple people who will also receive this email, but they'll just know that it's kind of addressed to a different person, but they'll receive the same email. In BCC, which is blind carbon copy, it'll kind of works the same way, that multiple people will be receiving this email, but they won't be able to see who else it was sent to, if at all. So if you were one example that you might use this would be like if you're working on a group project and you want to send your professor that, like, yes, this is the updates that we have so far, but you don't want to CC every single one of the people that are also in your group, because you don't need to put all those emails. You could put them in the BCC. Or vice versa, you could put information sending to your group that you're sending to your group in your CC, and then a BCC to your professor, so that they don't necessarily need to know that you're also making sure that your professor or instructor has an update.
And another important thing with the CC is if someone is CC'd into it, you always want to make sure you respond to everyone in the email, because they were CC'd for a reason.
And I have one thing to add. You also want to be careful by replying to everyone. So that's a good point. Sometimes you do want to respond to everyone, and sometimes you don't want to respond to everyone. So if you see a lot of people in your CC, but you originally, let's say I'm sending it to you, right? And I just want to respond to you. You just press reply. If you hit reply all, you're responding to everybody in that email. So you have to be aware of who you want to send this information to. Usually, like let's say you're working in a group project, you do want to press reply all. However, next one. However, when let's say you want to ask one of your buddies in that email a private question, you just put reply to him only. Because there'll be instances when you press reply, you assume you automatically click reply all, and you send an email just to one person.
Especially if like a professor sends an email to the whole class, you want to make sure that if you're sending something personal, you're sending it just to the professor and not like the whole class. Because that has happened.
To you?
No, to someone in my class.
Now y'all know. Attachments. So adding attachments to your email basically goes like, there's a little icon for it, and sometimes you'll need to turn in like an assignment via email. Let's say Canvas is down or something. Other times you'll like have made like an arrangement to send them something through email, or maybe that's just how your professor prefers that you turn in assignments. You would go in attaching like docs, Word docs, images, tables. There's another one coming in. Yeah, so, and then also when you're putting an attachment in your emails, and this goes for like in the cabinets too, some professors will put in their syllabus that they only want specific file types, so that's important to remember. And when you're putting in an attachment, it should tell you what type of file you're using. And again, that could be docx, PDF, or XLX.
Sorry. So the last thing before I leave, how many of you guys save multiple versions of a document? How do you know which is the most recent?
I put the date.
You guys should put the date that you guys worked, the most recent. Every time you save it, change the date. Because if you have 5 final drafts, and you accidentally send the wrong final draft, you're submitting the old draft. So every time you save it with the date, and I'll automatically put the timestamp, but put the date. So let's say I work on final draft today. I never use final draft anymore because I learned my lesson. So I put, working doc, today's date, and then I work on it again tomorrow. I'll just put tomorrow's date. So it's just a helpful hint so that you know which is the most recent and don't accidentally send the wrong document. Because I've done that many times.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Icons in an email. Again, you can take a look on the worksheet we gave you, but we're using a template from Gmail because we know that a lot of you use Google Mail. Just to run down the icons, signatures. Do any of you already have a signature? Do you know what that is? A couple people, not a lot. So whenever I send a professional email or a professional email that I'm sending at work or I'm sending something to a professor, I'll have something like this written at the bottom. So we all know that we sign off with our names. Someone said an email looks like a letter, and you always sign off with your name. So in a signature specific way, in an email you would include something like your first and last name, title, major if you have one, and maybe an email address if it's different from the one that you're sending the email to your professor. We'll get back to that.
And then it's also important to add a signature to your emails because it also reminds your professor of whose email they're reading.
Tips. So y'all already have practice writing one email. Here's a couple ways to go about making it better. So email tip 1, make the subject line count.
As we explained before, the subject line is really important, so you want to make sure that what you're writing in the subject line is relevant to what you're actually writing your email about, and to make sure to actually add something, because like I said before, if your professor doesn't see a subject line, they might not even open the email.
Right, so I know something that I've had to email my professors about recently was about attending OC Live as an extra credit event, as an extra credit assignment for a couple of classes. So I might put something like Thursday event, OC Live, my name.
Or that says communications, it's the class, and question about research. That's perfect.
Are any of you taking Common Law with Professor Harwood? Okay, she also runs OC Live, and there's an OC Live right after this workshop. If you want to go, it's going to be really great. Email tip number 2, say hello.
So you want to start off with a good morning, good afternoon, hello, just to be kind of formal. And if they have a doctor in their title, you want to make sure to add the doctor so-and-so. And then when you actually start the email, it's really important that you start off with, I hope this email finds you well, and not just straight into the question.
So a lot of times we will just go straight into the question, but that makes it look good. Honestly, I just kind of love that. Especially if you haven't attended office hours yet, it just kind of lets them know oh, this person emailed me in a way that was falling this way that was really nice and really professional.
So email tip number 3, be professional.
So something you want to avoid is using an email that isn't the MyBCCD email. Sometimes you'll have emails that actually are your first and last name, maybe a number, and that tends to be fine in the community colleges, or at least this one. But I know at CSUCI it's not so much.
So I had an incident where I was signing up for a study abroad class, and my school email was linked to my personal email, and I replied and it sent as my personal email, and I almost didn't go because she doesn't read emails that are personal. So you want to make sure that you actually sent an email from your school email. If not, it's totally not anymore. Where'd you go? I'm going to India.
Thank you. Yeah, one more point that we want to draw attention to is like not using all caps letters. I did that once because I thought like it was important. I didn't do it to a professor, but I did it like in my workplace, and that was just not as great. Yeah, there's a workshop next door, so just let that be. You want to do that too? We'll do that again. Do not use all caps. I was doing it to like kind of show urgency, like this thing needs to get done. But what ended up happening was like my coworker thought that I was like upset with them, and that's what it translates as anger. So just avoid using all caps in your emails.
So email tip number 4, identify yourself. So you wanna, like in the example, in the subject line, put what class you're in, but when you're actually writing the email, put your name, the class you're in, the day and the time, and always add the signature, like we talked about at the end. So for example, Jessica, Communications R101, Mondays and Wednesdays from 11 to 12:15.
So again, this is just to like hammer in like who it is. Sometimes if it is important, you can put it in the subject line, but it's also important to put that course number and title just because they could be at different places with the same course. Maybe they teach a 101 class like 3 different times during the week. So you just want to like let them know what class specifically that you're in, so they know what it is more or less the question's going to be about and how to reply to it. Email tip number 5, get to the point.
So if you have to write an email and it has to be more than like 3 or 4 sentences, you might just want to ask them to set up an appointment because they're not going to want to read the whole paragraph. And obviously if they have to read it, it's going to take more than 3 or 4 sentences for them to respond back with an answer.
Yeah, so you want to try to do this in the beginning of the email. We talked about like kind of good morning, good afternoon, doctor, professor, and then that I hope this receives you well. Right after that, you might want to go in with like, I have this question about homework, an assignment, extra credit. Try not to be too wordy. I tend to be guilty of this. Just present the problem as it is, and if more details are necessary, they can attend office hours. Again, this goes to like, if it's more than 4 sentences, it's probably going to need a more than 4 sentence reply. Email tip number 6, keep text language to yourself.
It's pretty basic. They're professionals. You don't want to be like, oh, like, I'll see you later, or he or me, whatever. I don't know what age.
I just can't make this faster.
Like, thanks.
Thanks. If you do want to put like a thank you, put thank you, don't put thanks. Yeah. Email tip number 7, keep it short. This goes back to not making it too wordy. They have a lot of emails to go through, so maybe they're looking at this during their office hours, so a student might come in and they want to reply to your email as fast as possible so that they can get to the student that needs their attention. Email tip number 8, proofread.
So you always want to make sure that you actually proofread your email, because if you send it and there's mistakes, they might not even understand what you're trying to say. And there's also some programs like Grammarly or Scribe that you can like upload the document and it'll proofread it for you.
Or just like copy and paste the text. Yeah, and that'll work out. And like proofread like the professor's email, because one time on Canvas, like he had put his email wrong and like he fixed it real quick after, but he had put his email in wrong so no one could actually reach him. Email tip number 9, follow up.
Okay, so professors are always busy and they might not respond to you right away, so give them like, 2 or 3 days, and if they don't respond within those 2 or 3 days, you want to send a follow-up email saying like, oh hey, I emailed you on this day about this, like, you don't want to be like, oh, you haven't responded to my email, because that sounds kind of mean, but you just want to like let them know like, oh, like I hope this email finds you well, I'm from the course, everything, I sent you an email on September 17th regarding a question, let me know if you can answer, stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you look at the subject line, like even the follow-up emails, it says like follow up. So then if they see that, they'll be like, oh, didn't answer that yet. It's probably urgent. Should get to that soon. And then you could also like follow up in person, but like maybe it's just a once-a-week class and you want to get your answer like straight away, or you have an assignment happening. So a follow-up email, like don't be afraid to like do that and come off as like, oh, like I'm just annoying him. Like nah, like this is their job and this is what they're here for. Email tip number 10, closing. Close up your email by making sure that you have made your point. You don't want to leave a question or like a concern that just they need to clarify further, so you want to be as clear as possible. Your professor has agreed to speak to you in person. How do you prepare?
So it's really important for you to attend your professor's office hours, especially if you're struggling, because at least they know that you actually care about your grade, and it can also benefit you in many ways. You can, if you make a certain connection with the professor, you can ask them for letters of recommendation and stuff like that.
We just went over that foundation thing. A lot of you might be wanting to apply to that. Highly recommend you do. Some years they don't get enough applicants and they're just looking like to give scholarships away. So like when you go home today, like look into that scholarship maybe. I know someone said like, oh, I haven't needed office hours yet, and like TBH, like me either, but like you should still make the effort to go in and maybe especially if that's your major, like come in with like current news about that new major and just ask them about it real quick. It is building that connection. It's also like just putting like your face in their mind and your name, a face to attach to the name, and then just like makes you a lot more, I don't know, not qualified, but like they'll be more interested in doing things for you and helping you out when you need a grade bump, like some stuff like that. Does that make sense? In-person tip number 1, be prepared.
So you want to be prepared with any talking points that you have, because their time is limited, so you don't want to go in without really knowing what you're going to say.
So a lot of the questions that you might have for your professor may already be answered in the syllabus. A lot of the concepts that they might put on their syllabus, they've already been teaching here for maybe a year or 2 or more, maybe they have tenure, so they've had like these same questions and they'll answer that in the syllabus. Also included in the syllabus should be their office hours. If you look through this and see that it just doesn't match up, it just doesn't work with your schedule because you have class at that time, or you know you need to leave to work, or you need to take care of like a younger sibling, a kid, make an appointment. A lot of the instructors on campus will be really flexible and try to make an appointment with you, even if it's just like a 20-minute thing, like on a Friday when they're not teaching. Have talking points ready. Again, like we said, like even if you don't need specific help, like just have like a topic or 2 to bring up. You don't have to stay there for like a half hour, but if you just want to go in for like 5-10 minute quick conversation about some like math thing, that just happened. Some like new fish that they found for marine biology or something. In-person tip number 2, introduction.
As like in an email, you want to introduce yourself with your name, what class you're in, because since they might have a lot of students, they might not even know who you are. That's why it's important to attend their office hours. So like she said, you can put the name with the face. And then you also want to be sure to be respectful and professional.
Just to kind of go into this, introduce yourself, like if you sit in the back of one of your classes, like the professor may not even recognize you at first. So just make sure to be like, this is the class, this is the day, this is the time. In-person tip number 3, be honest. So remember that a lot of the instructors on campus have taught here before, have been teaching for years, have taught elsewhere, and they've heard like every excuse in the book. Sometimes it's genuine and like that's fine, but don't try to like make something up to like fit a story so that like, yeah, I couldn't come to class this day because my car broke down, but you were like watching Netflix. Like just let them know that like I couldn't make it to class. And then if you didn't study or forgot a due date, like that's not really on your professor. Like you've been given the syllabus, you've been given campus resources, and like you probably should have been preparing for this for a while. So just if you need extension or something, like yeah, feel free to ask for it, but don't try to like manipulate them into getting that. Yeah.
Or like at Channel Islands, most professors specifically write in the syllabus that if you miss the date, like that's it. Like you can't take the exam whatsoever.
And person tip number 4, understand your professor. Just understand that this is like a person with a life and this is their job. And like most jobs, they work shifts, or because it's their 9 to 5, they're off at 5. So they might not always like have you specifically as their priority, because they need to focus again on other classes, other responsibilities outside of class. Try to see things from their perspective, and that like, okay, you're getting a problem and they're prepared to answer it, but you need to like bring something to the table that you're working on something, or you're like prepared to do you're prepared to accomplish something that you like were your meeting before.
So think of it this way, if you're busy yourself, you can only imagine how busy they are.
In just many classes.